Welcome to the latest episode of Thinking Tackle. I'm Ali Hamidi, and as you can see, we are off to a flyer at Farlow's. I'm joined by arguably the best carp angler that I know, in Daryl Peck, aka the Peckinator. What a start, my son. How big's that one?
It's a 28-pounder, mate.
It looks like a Farlow's original as well, to be fair.
Yeah, proper nice, lovely scales on his shoulders there.
Yeah, brilliant. As well as this one, we've managed to have a couple more each, so it's a really, really good start. But Daryl, you actually nicked that one off the bottom, didn't you?
Yeah, it's taken on the corner of the island on a little pink pop-up with a bit of almond goo on it.
Brilliant. And the others have been out on zigs. And talking of zigs, we're going to get some more recasts, and hopefully there'll be a few more just like this to follow. Well, Mr. Peck, not a bad start to the old Farlow's expedition.
Yeah, it's going all right, isn't it?
Yeah, let me get this side of you.
Okay, mate.
Now, we didn't really get to talk to you too much about the lake and the sort of wonderful surroundings we've got here. Obviously, you've got the motorway, the M25, which Farlow's is famous for. This lake is literally just made up of bays, islands, trees, reeds. It really is a wonderful, wonderful carp lake, and it's steeped in history. You know, it's one of those places you've just got to fish. If you've been carp angling for a number of years, you would have heard about Farlow's. If you're new to carp fishing, you've got to get down Farlow's, and you can see exactly why. Because when we come to choosing the swim, it's really, really hard. When there's so many areas and it's springtime, the fish are likely to be spread out. But Daryl's always a wise old dog to have on your hands, and that's why they call him the Peckinator, because you know, he was able to see that the fish were definitely grouping up out in front of this swim called Scotties. We had a couple of options in other back bays, but we checked out the pads area of the lake. We noticed there were quite a few fish in there. We'd been told there was fish out in the main body, so the obvious decision was that there was going to be fish between those two banks of the lake. So that's where we plotted up. We came in the evening, we've hooked a few on zigs, and you know, it's turning out to be quite a nice start at the moment. So let's have a look. Yes, there we go.
There you go, mate. Nice work.
Another one in the net. Lovely job.
Here's that hard fighting mirror. It managed to get me snagged in the island, but I got him out. And it was taken on a zig rig, 6 foot in about 8 to 9 foot of water. After a quick change of hook bait, I changed from a red to a white tipper, and it produced a bite quite quickly. So I'm going to slip him back and see if we can get another one.
Do, wouldn't it? Just it's got a little bit quiet on the in the open water, and we were contemplating a little stalk, weren't we?
Yes, mate. Was that off the area that put up a few spots out on?
Yeah, I don't think that's been the difference. I mean, we'll talk about that as we will a few other items when it comes to zig fishing. But yeah, I did try to spot over them, which is one of my sort of favourite methods, especially on a lake like Farlow's that has such a good head of fish. But it didn't seem to make any difference at all, and in the end I've just left it, to be honest. And
yeah, they washed away that cloud by now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, long time ago. Yeah, this really is the period of the year when zig fishing comes into its own. A lot of people seem to think that zig fishing is a summer method, but you couldn't be further from the truth. This is really trying to take me into some snags. This will be a nightmare. You don't want to... come on. And you're using light lines.
That's it.
Oh, managed to get him. He's not the biggest fish in the lake, but very, very welcome. And I tell you what, it's been some great sport, hasn't it, so far, Daryl?
Yes, mate. Since we've got the zigs in the right sort of the right depth, and that take's coming fairly consistently now.
Yeah. I'm still up for a little stalk, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, I think if you're fishing in shallow water, you've got a good chance on stalking. That's hence why we're getting on the zigs. I think the fish are in the upper layers, because it's only just turned mild, and the upper layers are obviously warmed up, and the fish are taking advantage of that.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping to pick your brains on that rig that you caught that stunner on last night, because one of the things that people will love about Daryl, and I love, is the fact that he keeps things methodically simple, but it's all the other things that he puts together that he just pieces the jigsaw together like magic. And I described him in his book as what was it, Daryl? Was it the Lionel Messi of carp fishing?
Something along those lines. Something that I didn't deserve.
No, he did deserve it. And to be fair, I say it to everyone, like, you know, certain people are just absolute naturals, and this man certainly is, and he makes it look so simple. So when I go with him, I don't know, naturally you just feel confident. You know, I'm a confident angler anyway, but when you fish with a peckinator, it all seems to click into gear quite nicely, just like this session is at the moment. So we're going to have a look at the rig he nailed that fish on, hopefully, after I've got this in. He's picked his line up as well. Get this in.
We got him.
Lovely.
Good work.
Well, there you go, another spirited Farlow's double. All welcome, doesn't matter what size they are. I tell you what, they're absolutely nailed on these zig rigs. So we're going to put this one back, and then we're going to catch up with Mr. Peck and have a look at that rig he nailed that beauty on last night. Right then, Mr. Peck, time to have a look at this rig. Some might say it's simple, I think it's quite clever. Now, why has it worked so well over the years?
Well, the key to it is this section here. Most people would peel between the split shot and the pop-up so that it would sit up straight.
Yeah.
And when I've used rigs like that in the past, and you probably have yourself, they always end up tangled round your tubing, your leg core or your leader, whatever you're using. And I just came out of it by putting a little break in it. Not only did it sit up straight, but it stopped it from tangling.
Okay, well firstly, talk us through how you actually tie the rig up then, and then we'll talk about the different elements of it and how it works. So,
right, well, I've got a coated braid, and I strip off about 4 inches at the end, and that's what I use to tie my hair. So I've got 4 inches of braid, tie an overhand knot, and roughly you want, with including the loop, to where the coating starts, you want about 1 inch.
Okay.
And it's for a pop-up between sort of 12 and 15 mil. So I thread the boilie onto the hair, put the boilie stop on, and then I thread the eye through the back of the hook, and I use a choddy hook because it's got a back-turned eye.
Yeah, so taking into account the sort of stiffer filament coming out.
Because I'm using the stiff coating all the way through, I want that back-turned eye because it creates a nice angle, and I find that it flips over quite nicely when you pull it across your palm.
So are you tying a knotless knot there?
Yes, a 9-turn knotless knot in that particular material. The way to do it is basically just make sure the hair exits exactly level with the point.
Okay, yeah, you can see that. It's really precise. That's one thing I've noticed with all of your rigs. Even though they are quite simple to do, those little parts of them are always really precise.
Just because they're simple doesn't mean I haven't thought about it. You know, everything's been taken into account, and as long as the key things are right, you know, where the hair exits, the hair length, those things can make all the difference on it, even on a very simple rig.
So is this the end trap soft or the semi-stiff material?
It's the soft.
Right, okay, so it really is quite sort of supple and everything else, isn't it?
It's supple, but if you get that pop-up critically balanced enough, it will still force the full length of the rig away. Yeah,
because with a bottom bait, it's likely to just sort of land in a clump.
Yeah.
But with you know, a nice slow sinking pop-up.
Yeah, you're feeling the lead down, it's coming in at that angle, the lead touches down, and there's enough stiffness just to keep that, just to push it away.
Yeah, right, got it. And then for the the little bit of uncoated part that you do for the shot to go over, how long do you normally have to have that?
Usually, well, it depends on the size of split shot needed, and really, if you're using a split shot above the size number 1, then you'll start to get tangles because that weighs more than the bait.
Oh, okay. So it's sort of lassoing around through the cast.
For pop-ups that are really buoyant, I use the hinge diff rig. For ones that aren't so buoyant, I use this one. And basically, I make the break big enough for the split shot. I put the split shot on, and then I pull the split shot towards the lead, leaving like exposed, say 5 mil of braid.
Oh, okay, so yeah, hardly anything, just enough for the shot to go on and give you that pivot.
Yeah, that pivot.
Now the other thing I noticed is you always seem to, I've seen Dovey do this as well, you seem to, even with the sort of softer coated braid, you seem to put like a little arc in it there, just under the eye.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that then?
Well, just like increasing the length of the shank, really. When you pull it across your palm, if you can get a little bit of a natural curve into it, it just naturally wants to fall that way round and take hold in the bottom lip.
So it's just so you have it lined up so that it runs perfectly flush, and that point's always going to rest on a bit of flesh.
Yeah, if that curve's in the right direction and the split shot's trying to pull the bait down, the hook point's sat in the right position, everything's working the way it needs to.
All right, lovely job. And then length of hook length, any particular preference? Do you have a starting point for people to follow?
Yeah, well, if you were casting into an area where you weren't getting a drop, you'd want to lengthen it so that you could allow for that. but generally I only fish it where I can get a drop on either gravel, hard, firmish silt or clay. And if I'm fishing for doubles and 20s, I tend to keep it about that sort of length.
So what's that, about 10 inches or something?
Yeah, probably. I think about this length being what, 6 or 7 inches.
Yeah, and then a couple of inches.
And a couple of inches at the other end. And if I was fishing for slightly bigger fish, I would probably lengthen it by 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches.
Give them enough rope to hang
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah. You just to take everything into shape and size into account.
And the leg clip needs no introduction. One of your favoured sort of setups all the time.
To be honest, I used to be a mad advocate of inlines for everything, but in recent years, since using the hybrid leg clip, I've just been completely sold on it because the swivel can't come out. And if you're fishing up to snaggy islands like I am here, you know, if it goes through the branch, I want that lead off, and then I've got a chance of getting it back through.
Yeah, lovely, lovely job. Well, awesome little rig, catching this man lots of carp. And I tell you what we're going to do now. I've been dying to do it all morning. We're going to do a spot of stalking, eh?
Lovely.
Well, here we are for a spot of tranquil stalking flanked by the M25. But this is what Farlow's is famous for, and this particular bay called the End of the Arm, which is sort of adjacent to Ramp Bay, is really, really famous for holding some big carp. So this is where me and Daryl are going to go. But there's a bit of a dilemma on our hands. We don't know who's going to go on what side of the swim. So there's only one way to settle this, and this will be the first ever live, well, nearly live, game of paper, scissors, rock on Thinking Tackle. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You might look like Dolph Lundgren, mate, but I'm going to take you down. All right?
Yeah.
So, best of one or best of three? I'm easy, mate.
Best of one.
Right, you've already won the first one yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah? So, here we go again.
1, 2, 3.
Who's your daddy? I'm your daddy. That's it.
Fate.
Good game there. I think it's fate.
Fate.
Everything's going to be fish locked up. You leave nothing to chance in situations like this. People that fish with loose clutches need shooting in the nicest possible sense. So this is my little 12-foot 2 3/4 longbow. Those lovely little 2600s. They're just perfect for this sort of job. Hopefully they've got enough winching power. Get everything lovely. Everything's tightened up. What I'll do is just get that line so all the sort of slack's taken out of it. That's all we need. No bobbing on, because I'm fishing so close. Just going to fish it like that. Turn that up. Delkim's really sensitive. Bang, sorted. Well, I've had just about enough of this little spot for today. We've given it about an hour and a bit. There's just not enough activity here. Daryl's already gone back to the swim to get some more zigs tied. I'm going to get this in, get back there and join him and hopefully get some more action. Now, one of the main reasons I got Pecky on the show this year was to pick his brains about the fishing he done last year. Well, this calendar year in effect, haven't you? The last sort of 12 months has been an epic year for you, hasn't it, fishing wise?
Yeah, it just seemed like I couldn't put a foot wrong. It's just everything's falling into place.
Now, you know, you're very modest. You sort of keep it under the radar a bit. You know, you don't big it up. You know, if I'd caught what you'd caught, it'd probably be on the billboards through Piccadilly. But you know, you have done some serious damage in the last 12 months. Firstly, just talk me through how many 40+ fish you've had.
I think
you've got
15.
a smile when you say it.
15.
15.
15
You're happy
in the
about
last.
that?
Yeah, over the moon, obviously.
Yeah.
And particularly about the two biggest ones, obviously, caught my first ever UK 50 and then another one at the end of January to catch one at that time of year is just unbelievable.
But that's deceiving, mate. When you say my first ever UK 50, that's not actually correct, is it? Because it's not your first 50 plus fish. It was the first fish between 50 and 60 pound, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, exactly. Because he has caught, how big was two-tone when you had it?
65.
65. So he has caught a 65 pounder, so don't feel sorry for him. Do you know what I mean? Don't feel sorry. So you had two 50s, you've had 13 40 pluses.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, the first fish, big Cambridgeshire pit. You went up there, I believe from what you've told me in the past, average, maybe people had like 10 fish in about, what, 130 nights?
Yeah, I think the guy the previous season had 13 fish in 130 nights, so a bite in 10 nights is considered very good going.
Yeah, serious, right. So go on in. How many nights did you do, mate?
I've done 13 nights for 11 fish.
Average. I think I might have done a little bit better, but no, not really. No, you've gone on there and absolutely stoved it in, haven't you?
It's timing though, you know. People put in the time at sometimes the wrong time just to stay in touch with the lake. Literally, I arrived, my first session coincided with someone catching for the first time that year, and literally I was on the pulse from that moment forward, fished each week for 5 weeks, stayed in contact with the fish and just managed to get amongst them.
But like everywhere, you know, when I've seen you fish, I've been on lakes that you fish, you do it your own way. There's nothing, no one can tell you the way to go. You go in there, you suck it in, you know, you suck it and see it, don't you? And then you just unlock the code like that.
But that just comes from experience, doesn't it? You know, maybe I see things that other people don't see, but I don't go in gung-ho. I like to go down and just sort of let them tell me what I need to do, and that is really the key. If you can understand from seeing what you need to do, then you're pretty much there, aren't you?
Yeah, so, you know, the story on that particular lake, big lake, people going out in boats, prodding around, looking for spots, all that sort of stuff. You didn't do any of that, did you?
No, literally just cast single hook baits to showing fish, and I noticed from the boat that the water was really clear, and the bottom was clear of weeds, so I could pretty much cast anywhere where they were showing, and just by keeping the disturbance down and not using the boat, the fish seemed to hold up in front of me, and whereas other people were prodding around, scaring them off.
Yeah. So this is the rig we showed earlier in the show, and it's not just somewhere that you'd use, you know, it's not just a rig that you'd use, say, at somewhere like Farlow's. You know, you've taken this to big fish waters with a low stock, and it does it everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, everywhere I've taken it. You know, I've always say I've never had someone in the next peg to me out-catch me because their rigs are better.
Yeah.
As long as your rigs don't tangle and you get the key points right, like the length, the hair exit point,
and a sharp hook,
sharp hook, then you're going to have them. If you put it on the right spot and they come in, you're going to have them.
Right, brilliant. So that was that, and then you went on to a few other lakes. You caught a few more 40 pounders.
I caught the big one out of Kingsmead on my first ever trip there. I'd never seen the lake before. Turned up, found the fish, cast out, following more than it's roared off on that exact rig. And yeah, big one, 46 pound stories. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable indeed. And then, you know, you've moved on to another lake, and I thought eventually somewhere's going to trip this man up. You know, he's going to come head to head with a lake that he just can't work out. Didn't happen. You've gone to Rockford, down between Southampton and Bournemouth. Yeah.
Yeah. Went there on a magazine feature. Cast out roughly towards the middle because I'd heard the fish had been holding up out there. And that evening a fish showed real long range. I cast to it, marked my line, and it turned out the next day after I caught fish on it that I was fishing at 165 yards.
Cool.
I went home and sort of thought about it, thought the fish are getting out there, no one's fishing for them. Came back and just fished that zone like quite a lot through the autumn, putting a lot of bait out there. And I was using a bait boat, driving it out there, dumping the bait, but using my rods to cast the rigs. The rigs weren't being dropped by the boat.
So not because some people were allowed to do that, weren't they? If you could put a bait boat as far as you could put a marker float, is that right?
Yeah, basically you're allowed to use a bait boat to drop rigs or bait, your choice, as far as you can cast a marker float.
Right.
And I thought that I could cast a marker float a lot further than some of the other members, so I'd be able to bait at long range and then fish over the top, because I wanted to be able to just recast onto a clip over the area.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go out and drop a single pile. I wanted to drop a line like you would when you were spodding, and then I fished two on either end of a line of bait, and it worked handsomely throughout the autumn. They seemed magnetised by it.
Yeah, decimated the place. And this was the rig that you done the business on, different to the other one. It's in, you know, for all intents and purposes, a soft hinge rig, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the soft coated braid there, but then, you know, this is a rig I've seen you use before. This is the part that you'd have on a naked chod normally.
Yeah.
So tying it wise, just talk me through it. What's the process?
Well, tied not the snot to the hook end with the stiff mouth trap material, two-turn blood to the eye of the size 11 ring swivel, and that the length of line between the eye and eye is 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
But the pop-up's still 2 inches off the bottom by the time you take the hook and the swivel and the height of the bait into account. And the boom section I like about 10 inches.
And I'll tell you what I've noticed, have a look in there, look. Just, even though he wants a little hook bait, so this is a 12, 13mm pop-up, but what he's actually done is bored it out and he's put a bit more foam in there, and that makes it even more buoyant than just the pop-up mix, you know, on its own. And that makes sure when you're leaving it out there for a long period, it's staying up there.
Yeah, those pop-ups are small. They're probably more designed for sort of tipping off baits rather than like holding a big, heavy, like stiff rig up like that. So just by taking that foam in there, you can just keep that up all night.
So you've tied it all up. Now, what was the main reason for the change? Because you were catching well on that rig anyway, the other sort of more simpler one.
Yeah, I've caught consistently wherever I've taken that, but I suffered a couple of tangles fishing at like silly ranges between like 160 and 185 yards, and wound in a couple of tangled rigs one day, and I thought, you know what, I know this doesn't ever tangle, so that was the reason for the change.
Absolutely brilliant. And you've got a nice little curve in there, and is there a way to perfect that curve?
Well, yeah, I lost a fish after shaping it with my finger, the only hook pull I suffered there, because basically the force of the cast has straightened out the curve section.
Bang, like that, yeah.
But by steaming it over a kettle, around something like a rig cone or a rig bin, you can keep that, it will set the memory.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard you cast it, that will always keep that curve. And the hook holds since that day have just been every single one, the swivel just on the edge of the lip, the hook, the full length of the rig in, just cranked in.
Unbelievable. Well, hopefully that's given you a tiny, tiny little glimpse into what makes this man so special. Well, I don't know how much of that little saga you just saw, but because Daryl's got a rod to the right of an island over there. He's using the right-hand side of the swim, but this fish had different ideas and literally swung round the front of the swim, and that tree wasn't the easiest one to pass a line through. In fact, it is almost impossible, but with a bit of teamwork, and you really did need it there, we got the little munchkin out.
I don't know how we did. That's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it's a big one, I don't know if it is, but what a way to go into the night with an epic battle like that under our belts. What does it feel like, Daryl?
Feels all right, mate.
Feels all right, mate. He's used to it, isn't he, big uns? Playing it under his other lines. Do you want me to lift them?
No, that's all right. I think we're going to be good.
So total bolt out of the blue. We were chatting about what's going on, because we came back after the stalking. Hasn't quite sort of gone to plan today on the zigs, this evening if you like, but it was a bit later yesterday when we started catching. It was almost on dark that the bites started coming on them, so we'll see what materialises. That wind's, you know, that wind's not the warmest of winds, but the fish seem to, as it calms down in the evening, just rise up a bit and we start seeing them. But this is off the bottom on that same little rig, isn't it?
Yeah, same little rig with the little pink almond goo pop up.
Bit of a workout this, isn't it, Pecky?
Yeah, my arm's killing.
Can't beat it though. Awesome stuff. Oh, look at
hello.
that. That's an old warrior. Come on, you've got to come in the net.
Hang on.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a cheese, mate.
Yeah.
Quality, son.
Get in there.
Oh, yeah.
That'll do, isn't it?
Mate, that's a stunner. Look at that. What a lovely common carp. Get in there, have a look at this. Unbelievable, mate. You know, when you were playing it, we thought it could be a nice fish.
Yeah, the battle was incredible. We got lucky, didn't we? I know it was a bit of teamwork around the tree and that, but we're quite fortunate the hook hole was really secure and the line was tough and just took care of those branches for us.
Unbelievable. So go on then, how big?
£31 on the nose, mate.
Unbelievable. A stunning carp, a stunning common carp from a really historic venue. And you know what? When we came here, didn't expect something like this, did we?
No, we were just, suck it and see, didn't we? Took it for what it was, and if we got a mid-20, we'd have been happy, wouldn't we?
Absolutely, but to catch this, it really has capped off a wonderful day, and hopefully this session has a few more surprises like this to come. Well, good morning. The gravel workings behind us are in full flow, but unfortunately the carp fishing isn't. Mr. Peck, that is the single result of our night's work, isn't it?
Yeah, lost another one, had this one in the early hours. So many fish in front of us this morning, wasn't there? It was crazy.
Well, I thought I was going to play God and sort of have a little paddle along the surface, along their backs. There was that many carp out there, and for all intents and purposes, if we'd just turned up at the lake and we'd seen that and put our rigs out, we'd have been expecting multiple takes instantly, wouldn't you, really?
Definitely on zigs. You know, with that many fish on the surface, you'd have just thought it was just a matter of time.
Absolutely, but it's unexplainable, really, because literally yesterday in the morning, the night before, we were catching on zigs. It was going really, really well. Consistent. I wouldn't say we were blitzing it, were we? But we were catching enough. And the same tactics, a day on, absolutely nothing. You know, we came back from the spotter stalking, put the zigs out. You know, we've had, like I say, a couple of bites, but what we could have caught, I just don't know, because I've got no answers to it at the moment.
No, we just have to keep on trying and see if we can come up with a code.
Absolutely, that's all you can keep doing. In these sort of circumstances, you've got to keep having a go, changing it, working the swim, seeing if you can literally unlock the code. So we're going to keep cracking, get this one back. Now, one thing I get asked about more than anything is zig rigs, you know, because people have seen me use it on thinking tackle for years now, and for some reason it's like a massive mental block for people. They don't know how to tie the rigs, they don't understand exactly why they work or how they work. So I'm going to sit down with the Peckinator, I'm going to show you some do's and don't factors really when using zig rigs. So Daryl, I know you've tied up the zig that you've been using. It's a little bit different to mine, but it's exactly how I used to tie mine up. Just things have changed a little bit. So let's have a look at it. Pass it here, man. Right, here we go. Now, Daryl, you're going to talk me through, firstly, how easy it is to tie.
Well, it's just a very fine mono, because bearing in mind, when you're fishing on the bottom, there's debris to blend in with, and when you're fishing up in the water, that's there to be seen. So we try and keep everything fine. So I've got a 0.2 mono, or 0.22 that one is. Overhand knot that's smaller than the bait, so the knot sits inside the bait. We've got foam there, a little piece of black and a little piece of yellow. Seems to do the do on most waters, particularly the clear ones. Knot that's knotted to a size 12 short shank mixer hook that you got there. Although it's a size 12, don't worry about it being too small. I've landed really big fish and pulled really hard and it's never moved. It's just a nice pattern, stays in there. And one of the things I really like to do is a tiny piece of hook silicone just on the eye. And what that does is just keeps the mono like flush to the eye, so that you don't decrease the gape of the hook. You know, when it comes out with a little bit of stiffness in that mono, it can be
kicking in and closing the gape. So you're by that silicone's keeping it all streamlined, keeping a nice straight flow away from that straight eye, basically. Now, the theory is that the black foam they see when they're looking up, it's silhouettes against the surface. And so if a carp's coming below your zig, if you like, that can catch their eye and bang. And then the yellow, if they're swimming level or over the top of it, again, that can catch their eye and they'll attack it. Now, we were talking off camera, an important thing, because I have seen people do it. I've seen almighty long hairs on zigs, right? That is a massive no-no. Do you want to explain it? Why do we have a short hair on a zig?
Well, because the bait is buoyant and the hook link is pre-tensioned by the buoyancy of the bait, the fish can't draw the bait in, take some slack and then get hooked. So it takes it all in one motion and is hooked all in one motion. So if the hair was long, the bait would go in and then the lead would pull the bait out of the fish's mouth. So short hair, it all goes in one movement and they get hooked immediately. Yeah,
absolutely. You do get a lot of fish grabbing at zigs. I mean, if we actually knew how many times it got mouthed before we hooked one, we'd be pretty shocked, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it would be pretty sour, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in and out, so you want everything nice and tight away from the lead, so as soon as they take it, bang, they're nailed. Now, so that's Daryl's one. Again, remember the fine mono, that's important. Don't be putting it on with like 15-pound mono or even fluorocarbon. That's another thing I've seen people do. Fluorocarbon is heavy, it sinks like a brick. So if you've got fluorocarbon and a zig, there's a chance your line will even be sagging. And again, you think you've got like an 8-foot zig out, but it could be more like a 6, you know, so important stuff. Now, I'm going to show you the hook end of mine, because for all intents and purposes, I used to tie exactly the same rig as Daryl did. But now I've incorporated this little clever morsel. This is a zigger liner, and you use a little tool. I've got a red one on here because that's what I've been catching well on, red with black foam, but it's slowed down now. But again, it's all about keeping the colours changing and staying in tune with what the fish are doing. So this little tool, literally, I push it through the gap, the little loop at the back of this zig liner and just pull the colour of foam through that I want and then cut it to size. It really is a clever way of doing it and makes it very easy. So Daryl, it's a bit of an evolution, isn't it?
I think it's a brilliant idea. That it's very neat, very tidy. You're getting the combination of colours. You can mix and match how you want. And one of the things that used to go wrong with the old zig rig is your hair would spin round and the bait would be sitting off to the side. You know, all that's been eradicated with that sort of.
Exactly, and you can move it up and down. If you're a fan of having it off the say lower down the hook, so you've got a lot of hook showing and the bait near the back of the eye. That's one option, or if you're like me, I like to have it coming level with a point and you just push it on like that. Really, really is easy to do. And again, I've got 8-pound cruiser control mono here. I don't quite know the diameter, but again, it's important to have a nice thin diameter line. But then this is important as well. This is a part people get wrong a lot of the time. It's the actual lead system. So this little tag end here that I've got hanging off the end is my main line, all right? That's going back to the reel. Now, this here is the anti-tangle sleeve. Now, I've played about with lead clips, with inline leads, straight, with ring swivels on. This is the most tangle-proof way that I've been using zigs. It's a drop-off inline because there's a lot of bars here, there's weed and snags and everything else. So I want that lead to come off on the bite. If a fish really goes off at a rate of knots, I want it to shake that off. So literally, if I show you there, got a little bit of 3mm silicone, not a tail rubber, an actual bit of silicone. I found again that to be even better than a tail rubber, Daryl.
Yeah, it comes off much easier.
Yeah, slides off. So I have that on there. That's a 3-ounce distance in line. And then look, what I've got is my actual main line tied to the same eye as my hook link. All right, and even though it's a little bit tough to get that anti-tangle sleeve on, it does go on there. If you have a look there, just pulled it on, it does go on. It's not as neat as it would be if there was not another knot to the actual swivel, but it is on there. And then back that goes. It really is simple, and that has been my sort of big fish hauling rig for zigs. Anything basically, any zig situation, that's the one I cast out because it's tangle proof.
A lot of people when they're using zig rigs just cut off the rig that they're normally using. It's got the same lead system on, tie a zig on, then it tangles a few times and then don't bother with it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's because you've got a length of tubing or a leader and the zig reaches around the back of that and ends up tangled. And with this you've got no leader, no tubing, no nothing because you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you know, as it's going through the air, if you have a look, that resistance from that sleeve, just like that, and it's just keeping it all away and just as it hits. Yeah, exactly. You still want to hit the clip. You know, don't hit the clip too hard and don't hit it too lightly. You know, you want to be hitting the clip about a foot off the surface or stopping the lead about a foot off the surface so it goes in at a nice pace. You don't want it bouncing back because again, that's counterproductive, Daryl, isn't it?
Yeah. You want it to go out, feather, slow, stop, hook link comes away like that, impacts the water separately, and then you're going to end up with a completely untangled presentation.
Absolutely. And another thing that, you know, is a mainstay now with my zigs, I had a little bit of liquid attractor here just before. If the sun's shining, what I like to do is have some zigs tied, add some of this stuff onto it, and then what I actually do is leave it in the sun to dry. Leave it on the deck, and what that'll do is just form a little crust around the foam. When that goes out there, you're going to have a really, really slow bit of leakage. And obviously on some of the lakes where you don't have the stock that you're going to be spodding over zigs, you know, I had a little go at doing it here, didn't make much difference, okay? But on other lakes, spodding over zigs can be devastating. And you have this in amongst it, or as a single, it's just a little trail of taste, a bit of a smell, bit of colour, all around the hook bait. And I think, you know, that can really, really make a difference to your fishing. Got anything else to add on that?
Well, just about the depths really. When you see them on the surface, obviously pick where you see them is where you want to be fishing from, and ideally you want to be just below level, don't you? You don't want to be, I know we were saying about the black silhouetting, but I think in an ideal world
you want to be like that.
Yeah, so if you can see them from up a tree a couple of foot down, that's the depth you want to target. You want to just so they've just got a dip to it, because that little dip will help set the hook immediately when they try to upright.
Yeah, absolutely vital point that is. You know, that's one of the things when you go to a lake. I mean, we had it this morning. I know it's not turned out brilliant today, but normally the more fish you see on the surface, the higher you want to go. The less fish you see on the surface, the more you drop it down. But as a starting point, if you go to a lake, you're seeing a few swirl on the top, you're seeing a few bosh out, you've got a feeling they're having it up in the upper layers, then, you know, 2/3, 3/4 depth, and then play it from there. You can lower one and take one up and find the happy medium. So zig rigs, an absolutely devastating tactic. You know, more of you should try it, and you've got to go in committed, haven't you? Because a lot of people put one rod out, don't get a bite, and then
get a tangle and then take it off.
Yeah.
You know, if you can see the fish are off the bottom, there's no point fishing on the bottom. You might as well fish where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So give them a try. You really won't be disappointed. Woohoo!
I just put that out there.
Did you just recast?
Yeah. That took about 20 casts to get where I wanted.
Oh, it's on the surface.
Yeah, mate.
Mate, that's epic because we've really been doing our own heads in this morning. You know, we've persevered with the zigs. We've tried a couple of things on the bottom. I've put one out on a shallow spot, but we haven't really spoken to you about this spot that Daryl's had a 28 off, a beautiful 31 common off, and another bite. And to be fair, one of the real top locals that fishes here, Wayne Mansford, brilliant angler, fishes here a lot, and you can't beat a bit of local knowledge. And to be fair, he tipped us off about that spot, didn't he?
Yeah, he put us right on the money.
And Daryl's fished it absolutely brilliantly, you know. Daryl, go on, while we're playing it then, we might as well chew the fat a little bit. What's been your approach on that spot?
Well, I've got quite a heavy left to right wind, so it's quite difficult to get it. I'm trying to land right on the edge of the bushes that are there, but if I'm hitting the clip too hard, it's kiting round in the wind and landing like up to a rod length off the island, which is not really where I want it. We've got a bar coming off there, quite shallow water, 4 or 5 foot.
Which is what you need in these conditions. These fish are enjoying the temperature in the upper layers, aren't they? You're not going to be catching them in 12 foot of water at the moment, are you?
No, definitely not. That's why the zigs are working and the shallow spots are working, because the fish are in the upper layers, and the chances of getting picked up in shallow water is much higher than obviously down in the deeper parts.
Because they're coming to that level, aren't they? Because they're already at that level. Yeah. So you've almost skimmed the trees, haven't you, on your cast?
Yeah.
Are you clipped up?
Yeah, I'm clipped up, but the clip won't necessarily save me. I still have to go in at the right trajectory. So I'm casting it quite a bit harder than I want to be, and just trying to get that trajectory right and skid it in under those branches.
Yeah, and look, the stamp of fish, you know, the ones we've been catching on the zigs, they've been nice. You know, the upper doubles, maybe the odd scraper 20. We haven't really even weighed one, have we, on a zig?
No.
But these ones we have weighed. Do you put that down to the fact you've been using boilies?
Definitely, you know, I've been feeding quite heavily. This time of year I don't generally feed heavy, but because I'm fishing a bright pop-up, I don't think they're eating all of the bait. But I think by having a bed of decent food bait out there, you encourage the bigger ones to start having a look.
Yeah. I mean, they're loving that hybrid, aren't they? And I've watched it on the underwater. To be fair, even though some of the
showed out there, right where I just right from, yeah.
Oh, brilliant! They could be on it. You know, one of the things you saw with the underwater filming that we did, when we put sweet corn in, it drew fish in wonderfully. But the big fish were definitely attracted by boilies, you know. And it is a bit of a theory. Sweet corn and particles can catch smaller fish. Boilies catch the bigger ones. I'm a big believer in being able to put all of that in. However, in this situation, there's a lot of bream in Farlow, so you don't get away with using particles and stuff.
No.
But you can persevere. Good quality boilie on the spot. And look, I mean, that looks like another nice fish, Daryl, doesn't it? Here we go, come on. Come over, bring it over, bring it over. Yes, it's in. Wicked.
It's in there.
Unbelievable.
Good work, mate.
Lovely carp. Another stunner off the bottom bait rod. Wicked.
Lovely.
Right, here it is, 20 pounds exactly. Beautiful fish, this one. Lovely scaling. Came to the boilie rod. All the bigger fish of the session have fallen to that. You can't write off zigs, but if you're after the better quality fish, then definitely boilies is the way.
Oh yeah! Yeah!
Good work.
Well, don't you just love it when a plan comes together?
Yeah, the move's paid off, hasn't it, mate? Quite handsomely.
Absolutely. This morning we woke up doom and gloom. You know, it just didn't happen last night. The fish had clearly done the off. This morning, had a little walk round to this side. Daryl liked the look of it. I liked the look of it. It was out of the wind. It felt a lot warmer. We'd heard news that someone up the bank had caught one quite quickly on a zig at their first carp out of Farlow's, and we were soon to follow. We got some zigs out in the water, and I've helped myself to a lovely 22.5 pound Farlow's original as well. Look at the scaling on that one. And Pecky, another nice double.
Nice double.
Absolutely brilliant. So, you know, it just goes to show when the fish aren't in your swim and you're on a pressured day ticket lake, little pockets of water that are out of the wind, out of the pressure, the fish often hole up in there quite quickly, and these are the results. Awesome stuff. Mr. Peck, your rods are away. You're ready to go. It's been a pretty hard few days, hasn't it? It's been up and down. Is that how you describe the session?
Yeah, but we've been on them, we've not been on, we've had to move, but that's general pressured carp. They move around, they try and get away from us. It's not been too busy later end of the session, so we've had to go after them.
So let's have a recap of the session, you know, because when we got here, the zigs went out.
Yeah.
Now, explain that to me. 1 minute they're working,
Yeah.
the next minute they're not. Why is that?
Well, your takes first of all came in just into dark, didn't they? Just as the light levels dropped, I was thinking maybe the tackle's less...
It's more inconspicuous, if you like.
As the light levels change, because I had a few takes in the dark on zigs, and as far as the ones when we could see them in the daylight right on top of us, we didn't get anything, did we?
No,
when we could see them, we didn't catch.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is odd.
And I spoke to Brad Greening, former junior British champion. He fishes here a lot, and he actually said to me the other day they were catching more when they couldn't see him, when the previous day it was black with them in front of them, couldn't get a bite. They didn't see carp. Similar to what we had today. We didn't actually see anything. We cast out, and we had instant bites in this swim, didn't we?
Yeah, it was, well, really quick, but we knew by the cold wind coming into our swim, the lack of activity that we'd had, there was a good chance that they'd backed off. We came round to where matey down the bank had a bite as well, so we went just up from him, hedging our bets that they'd move this way, and it worked, but as soon as we caught, they backed off again, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So as that motto of that story again, the pressure just seems to angle fish around the lake quite quickly. Now, onto your rigs and stuff, because again we've had a real good look at them in this show. That pop-up rig that you've taken everywhere, you've come to another pressured lake, somewhere where the fish have seen it all, and it's nailed a 30, a lovely 28, and another one of the originals, I'm guessing. Stunners. You take that thing everywhere, that rig, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, as long as it's tied correctly and it's all neat and you've got a sharp hook and the hair's the right length, whipped to the right place, you catch a carp from that, any lake in the country. It doesn't matter how difficult they're supposedly supposed to be. A carp's a carp, and if you deliver your bait untangled and it's all nice and pretty, it's going to do the do for you.
And once again, Boiley's proving that they do pick off the bigger fish.
Yeah, it's tried and tested, been going for years. Any big carp has got big, and he must have seen Boilies down the years generally, you know. And if he's seen them, he's going to know they're good for him. And you don't get many free bits of floating around mid-water, do you? You know, so the ones that get caught on that, you can catch bigger than on zigs, but they tend to be smaller, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one final recap: is there any sort of mistakes that you thought we've made? You know, my feeling was when you had the father and son act on the factory bank, they done really well. They fished on the bottom and caught, and at that time we were persevering hard with zigs. How long do you give it before you change to a different method? Especially if you've been catching on one.
You can only go by what you see, and we could see fish with their backs out on the surface, and if they hadn't been catching, we'd have been none the wiser to them being on the bottom. By the time we realised, it was too late. How could we have known that there was fish feeding down there on the bottom when we can see them blatantly on the surface in 9-10 foot of water? You know, I've always say fish to what you see, and it's a rule that's always stood me in good stead, but it doesn't mean there's nothing's 100% in fishing, is it? You know?
Yeah,
it's all open to debate.
So don't beat myself up about it.
No.
All right, okay, great stuff. Well, that's all we've got time for in this episode of Thinking Tackle. I hope you've enjoyed it. Daryl, you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, I had a great time, mate.
It's been an absolute belter. We haven't dominated the lake, we haven't hauled, but I'll tell you what, you'd have taken 12 fish before it, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. We've come to a lake that we don't fish regularly. We've managed to find some fish. Our tactics have worked. We can't really grumble at that.
Absolutely. So for more tips and tricks from this series of Thinking Tackle, visit thinkingtackle.com. All that's left to say is thank you very much for watching, and see you on the bank sometime.